Thank you, band. Thank you, band. You know, putting the words up is nice because one of the jokes about Unitarian Universalists is the reason that congregations don't sing more lustily together is because they have to read ahead to see if they agree with the words. Well, I want to look at this for a minute. Bill Withers was an African-American songwriter and musician, and he's pretty much a soul music legend. He came from rural West Virginia, and he described this song as coming from a rural rather than an urban experience. He first got the first three notes, na, 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 and he said, lean on me. And then he had to think, oh, what would make me say something like that? And so that was his process. And what he ended up saying is, at that point, what would make me say something like that? It's really, it really comes down to the real you. It's between you and your actual feelings, you and your morals, what you're really like. Lean on me. So that's one thing, individual person to individual people. And we've got such great examples here of people helping each other out. And, you know, this one line really, this one verse about, please swallow you pride. If I have something you need to borrow, just tell me, please. It's a joy. It's a gift, actually, to be asked to help somebody. Especially when you can, you know. He tells a story that down south, where he was from, is a little bit different because somebody might help him out even across racial lines if he was in a tough situation. He tells a story about one night when he was very young. He was on a lonely back road in Alabama at night, and he blew a tire. And there he was stuck, he had no spare. And he sees this guy come up over the hill, white guy come up over the hill. And he's come and he said, boy, it looked like Deliverance. You know that movie? Yeah. Deliverance, oh my gosh. I was pretty nervous because I knew who I was and where I was, and I was very worried. But it turns out that the guy said, oh, you need a new tire. Okay, let me go get one. And he went back over the hill, and it's still like, yeah, but who's he going to bring back with him? But actually, Bill Withers didn't have that thought, because once the guy said, oh, I'll get you a tire, he would. And he said, you know, it's funny. Because it doesn't always work like that when people get together and they form a mob. They might, you know, have a different feeling about things. But I like to think that this whole process that he talks about, it's about you and your morals. It's about how you really feel, is how our UU communities are. It's real. And isn't it good to find a community that values that? You and your morals and your values and what you're really like. So, hence the title, which is not building bridges, although that's part of it, because that's what we do, but it's nourishing a place like this. How do we nourish a place like this? And what is a place like this? I'm going to read you something that I really like that Reverend Virginia Safford wrote. Now, it uses the word church, and which is, in my world, I take it as kind of a shorthand for a community that is actually trying to live its values into the world. But thank you. Yes, I can get an amen. That's good. But as a poet, you know, I feel that the word church, it even sounds kind of church, you know, church. I mean, it could be like a nesting call for a ground-dwelling bird, you know, but it even sounds constrictive. I mean, it's not a pleasant-sounding word. I prefer the phrase faith community. But that said, and we'll get back to that in a minute. That said, a lot of people continue to use the word church, I think, just because it's easy and it's there. So as we listen to this excerpt from Reverend Safford, let's be generous and try to understand that we don't really know what she means by the word church. It's an old-fashioned word from an old world. But it's meant, I think, I take it very much in a 21st century version of what that old word might be. So this is what she says about Unitarian Universalism. She says, ours is a saving church, and by that I mean that lives are saved within it. People still say that. They use that old vocabulary. They say, I never knew there was a place like this where I could be accepted. A place like this. They say, I never knew there could be a congregation that believed as I do, or doesn't believe as I don't. They say, I walked out of the church as soon as I was old enough, but until I came here, I had no idea how deeply I was longing for connection to other people and also to the sacred. They say, I was a spiritual shipwreck and I'm still drifting, but at last, I have a home. Here, I found a religion welcoming science and reason while honoring mystery and wonder. Here was a religion concerned more with deeds than creeds, a church that in its Sunday schools, our youth fellowship, our children in youth fellowship, our religious exploration, whatever you want to call it, apparently taught children to think and act and feel, to know their hearts, instead of to recite. I felt not as if my soul were saved, but if myself were somehow integrated. Amen. Amen. Thank you. We're going to do this. You're going to work this with me, and in a couple of months, there'll be people shouting, or not, from the other side. She felt as if her integrity was restored, as if her mind and heart and soul were reunited after a long, strange, unnatural parting of the ways. Hang on a sec. So finally, she goes on to say, this is, in that sense, a saving church, and a church that acts. So it's not just about the internal process. It's about, who do you want to be in the world? Who does Foof want to be in Florence, in Lane County, in Oregon? It is also a church that asks and wonders, unafraid of questions that may go unanswered, unafraid of answers that may challenge assumptions. In William Ellery Channing's word, one of our great forefathers from the early 19th century, it will not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith, but opens itself to light whensoever it may come. It does not mechanically copy the past, but listens for new and higher mountains of conscience. I have found that to be true here. And so thinking about what it takes to nourish that, I am going to start issuing a series of invitations. For those of you who are willing and able to stand when your group is called, would the board please stand, the current Board of Trustees, anybody who's currently serving on the Board of Trustees? Thank you. Now, yes, anyone who has ever served on the Board of Trustees? All right. Anyone who has ever served on the nominating committee, the intern committee, or the search committee for minister? More people? There we go. Now notice, if new people aren't standing, that means sometimes that these people are doing that as well, okay? Anyone who's ever helped out with a fundraiser? Okay. Anyone who has ever helped remodel and beautify this building? Including watching out for and cleaning up after leaks, power outages, water outages, septic tank overflow, changing Wi-Fi service, and other assorted emergency. Anybody else? Clean up stuff? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, right? Okay, we've had a lot of those. Anybody who's ever helped plan special programs held here? Please stand up. Anybody who has, yes, you have, Mark Levy. Anyone who's ever served as a greeter? Okay, that should get a few, yeah, all right. Anyone who has ever helped out with our younglings, and that includes being part of skits, for example. Anyone who has ever helped out with a Sunday service in any way as a speaker, including this, I believe, a musician, a tech person, a reader, a Sunday service planner, a chalice lighter or extinguisher, or an announcement maker. Please stand. Anyone who's ever participated in a book group or a discussion of ideas? How is it that everyone's not standing? I mean, I just don't know. Anyone who ever brought food for after a service or a special event? All right. Anyone who has ever eaten the food brought to the special event? Okay, and anyone who has ever attended a service here? Okay. So this is our village, and it takes all of us. Oh, and I forgot the people who tend the outdoor space. How could I forget that? Tending the wild, right? So it takes all of us. It takes a village several times over, a lot of twisting, a lot of spinning, a lot of braiding, a lot of harvesting of grass, a lot of courageously walking out on that yikes, cable of grass. Okay, so here's a tip. If your board ever asks you to do something, just say yes. Just say yes, if you can. Try. It's not always possible, but it takes everyone several times over. And of course, you don't have to ask to serve. You don't have to be asked. Sometimes, for instance, as in the recently formed FOOF Animal Ministry, you can just ask to serve this faith community and get a yes. Yes. Can I get an amen? Amen. All right. So, just to end this little party, I want to get back to the concept of a faith community. What does it mean, a faith community? You know, many years ago, I was in my home congregation. I had a crisis of faith. I mean, something happened, and I was devastated. I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. I was devastated, and I said, I am having a crisis of faith. What in heaven's name does that even mean? Because, I don't start as a theist. And it was faith in the community. It was faith in my community, my local community, my national community. And I had to look deep inside to figure out if I could still be a Unitarian Universalist, given everything. And I decided, once I heard some people from the UU Identity Seminary that I accidentally visited, and took a course at accidentally. Within about an hour, it's like, oh yeah, this is where I want to be. This is it. So very, very lucky. So here we are in this faith community that is exactly and actively trying to live its values in the world. Oh, and what are those values? Here, let me show you a diagram. This is not a list of principles. It could be a list of principles, and it's related to a list of principles, and all the principles, in fact, are part of this. But these values, which are younglings, or are sort of older younglings, have helped us remember with the acronym JET-PIG. Justice, equity, transformation, pluralism. What's the I? Interdependence. And what's the G? Generosity, right? All centered in love, which is the chalice, the flame that feeds the whole thing. And I know you've seen this, and maybe you're getting a little bored with this, so I thought I would add something else from this infamous Article 2 that the delegates are going to be voting on this year to see if we want to adopt this. Because oops, I went backwards. How'd that happen? Uh-oh. Oh. There. In the section on what we believe, it says that our primary source of inspiration as Unitarian Universalism is direct experience of the transcending mystery and wonder. That's our primary source. That's our primary text, if you will, direct experience. It's not a book, although we hold many books with great reverence and respect. But direct experience in this version of Article 2 is where it starts. So whatever it is that you're holding in your heart, however that works for you, however it connects. And then the second thing is that we strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcomes all persons who share our values. Yes, right? Because it's been very confusing for people outside of Unitarian Universalism to come in and say, so everybody's okay? You know, like Hitler is just dandy? And it's like, well, inherent worth and dignity, but some behaviors are just wrong, you know. So as long as, I like this clarification a lot, because we want to truly welcome people that share our values. And these are not creeds, they're values. Generosity, interdependence. We're not rugged individualists all spinning around in our little atomistic ways. We're actually related not just to each other as Unitarian Universalists, but to the world. So, I want to leave you with that thought. How will you come to nourish a place like this in the coming year? The need is always great. Thank you.